I hope I'm in the right place. I have just clicked on the wrong button and, and started going live on my other page. So I'm in the right place now. I hope you're here. I'm just going to check that I'm coming through. Okay, let's see. Oh, there we go. So I think, yeah, this is my second attempt, everybody. So it should be fine now. And I will delete the other one later. So are you with me? Are you here? Apologies for the little technical glitch there. Normally I'm really good at these things. So 2 people are watching. Brilliant. You've refound me. There's lots and lots of buttons in front of me that I have to press and clicked on the wrong one. So hope you're okay. Let's start off by checking everybody's got a drink, because that is really, really important. And tell me in the chat box, where in the world are you joining me from? And also, are you new to EY Maths, or are you one of my Pathway or Impact members? Let's have a little bit of context first, and we'll then give people time to switch over, because they will have realised that I was chuntering away on the other one and then had to move over. All right, so a little bit of a delay. If you've not done these with me before, or you're not used to coming on these kind of sessions, there's a little bit of delay between what I say and what you hear, so the chat box is always a bit behind. But we'll manage that really well. Hello. And we've got, Rosalia. Rosalia is one of my Impact members. Lovely to have you on, Rosalia. She is there in the East End of London, near where I started my first teacher training many, many years ago, and first proper job. And we've got Kay from Pathway, one of my members in Aberdeen. But just keep, I'm going to start the session, but just keep telling me who you are, where are you joining us from, and what's your relationship with EY Maths. So are you brand new to this? Are you a bit of a lurker? Are you a Pathway or Impact member? And today we are here to talk about self-registration. So I have started something in June, which is on the website, and I'm going to go and take you there straight away and show you. But on the website, I'm going to have a monthly, what I'm calling snack-sized webinar. So snack-sized is when you're a really, really busy person, as all of you are, and some people mega busy, you want to learn, that's why you're in this group, but you just feel like things are pulling you in all different directions. So having something that you can grab a cuppa, whatever your favorite drink is, and put 15 minutes on your phone and just clear a little bit of space. It might be while you're still at work. It might be sticking the kids in front of Disney Plus and you have some time to go, right, I just want to sit and watch a short amount of training. So the snack size webinars are generally an hour. So of course you can do the maths, you can split them up into 4 little snack size bits, or you can watch it all in one go, which you might end up doing anyway if you really love what you're watching, which I hope you will. So I'm just going to take you over. Here is the EY Maths website. Good morning, everybody. Keep telling me if you're just joining us. Tell me where in the world you're joining us from, and are you new to EY Maths? Are you a Pathway member? Are you an Impact member? Let us know in the chat box. So here's the website, and if you go, you can either use this banner up at the top here, which at the moment shows you it's about self-registration, or you can always click here and go to the snack size learning. So this month, August 2023, so last month for June and July, it was teaching number bonds for automatic recall, but not in a horrible rote learning way, a way with wonderful meaning and engagement, which is what everything I'm about in EY Maths. So here you have got until 6 o'clock today to snap up the early bird cost, and there'll always be, for the first 3 days, a £15 offer at the beginning of each month. So that makes it easier for you to remember. And if you're a Pathway or Impact member, you get this free within your membership. So the Pathway are getting it as a bonus, and Impact, it's always in their library all the time. So that's where you find that, over on the website. So I'm going to come, oh, hang on, oh gosh. All sorts of buttons propping up, everybody, cropping up. But we are going to focus on self-registration today. So you might be planning to buy the webinar. You can buy it after 6 o'clock today, but it'll be back to its normal price of $35. Or you may have bought it and watched it, or you might be a Pathway or Impact member and you watched it recently, or you've been going back to it. So wherever you're at, this session is going to make sense to you. I'm going to give you a little bit of an intro to it, but to learn how to do it, that's what the webinar's for. But I'm going to be here to answer any questions that you've got, whether you're just starting out or whether you've watched the webinar and you are thinking, right, I've got my starting point, but I just want to know about this and I just want your opinion about this. And I've got my trusty whiteboards with me and my 5 frames and all sorts of things so I can model things for you. So if that all sounds good, hi Sue in Australia. Pembury. Now, where is Pembury? Someone's just come on and said hi from Pembury. So lots and lots. We've got ECTs, so that's early childhood teachers, isn't it? So you are what was called an NQT. You're at the beginning of your journey as a teacher, so welcome. I'm thinking of running a session actually for those of you who are new to early years. So you might not be a new teacher, but you've moved from a different year group to nursery or reception, which in England is 3 and 4 and 4 and 5-year-olds. And of course, really relevant for those of you who are newly qualified teachers as well. So let me know in the chat box if that is something you would like. I'll offer it towards the end of August, towards the end of this month, so that you can start your job as confidently as you possibly could and with a reality check on the journey that you're on. Okay, so self-registration. If you've got something to write on, you may wish to join in a little bit here because I'll start off with kind of a bit of a context and teaching. So in all of my training, I'm going to write this down actually for you. And those people who are in Pathway and Impact particularly will know this extremely well. I often show you an iceberg. So I'm going to draw an iceberg on here. It's not going to be the best iceberg in the world, but it'll do. So, okay, there's my iceberg. And we know what is true and most well known about icebergs is that you only see a little bit of it poking above the water. That probably would be even smaller. And the majority of the iceberg, not on my picture, is below the water. And I want you to use this as a model to help see what is wrong with the way that we have been taught to plan for maths and other subjects as well. So what we have all been taught to do and what every scheme pretty much encourages you to do is to focus on the what. And the what in maths or in any other subject as well is the activity. So what is it I'm going to do with the children? So if you think the average PowerPoint, the average task in a workbook on a worksheet, oh, please don't use things like that. That's conversation for another time. But the task itself is not where we need to begin. The analogy I often use is if you went to a doctor and they just sort of threw a treatment at you without finding out what was wrong with you and what your symptoms were and how things had gone for you and without having good knowledge, really good knowledge of the condition you've got, I hope you'd be really scared because you'd be like, this is so unlikely to work because you can't just throw a treatment without understanding the condition. So give me a thumbs up in the chat box if that makes sense, because every single bit of training, free or otherwise, that you do with me, I'm going to talk about this in the same way. So let me know if that makes sense to you. So, chucking my pen around. Instead, what we have to start with, which we're going to start with today, is why. So when I'm on Ecamm, by the way, everything's reversed, so you'll see me going the wrong direction all the time. So the why is, why do your children need this skill mathematically? And I'm going to tie that directly to what we're doing today, because this session is not about self-registration. This session is about teaching children mathematics. And it happens that self-registration in the what is a blooming good way of doing that. And it also ticks a lot of other boxes as well. So the first thing with the why is, if we think about the skills children need to be as a mathematician, and there's so many, but I'm going to say in this case, noticing, you'll hear me talk about all the time, noticing is a very human thing because noticing keeps you alive. Noticing protects you from danger, helps you notice where food sources are, you notice when the weather's changing. This is like real primal stuff that keeps us alive as humans. Your children will switch off from noticing because we tend to teach in a way that says, can you see what I can see? Can you tell me what's in my head? The guess what's in the teacher's head game. The trouble is, even very young as 4 and 5, children start tuning into, I've got to say what the teacher wants or the practitioner wants. And they shut down this noticing. And that in so many ways makes maths really hard to learn then and later on, because Maths is all about patterns and relationships and connections and the real world. So if you shut down noticing, you can't do it. So noticing is one of the things that I want my children to be really good at and build on what they can do. I want my children to understand number. And there's many ways we can think about number, but one way is as a quantity. Because as a quantity, like the threeness of three things, four things, that's only one way of thinking about number. But there are, in four, there's two twos, there's a 3 and a 1, there's 2 1s and a 2. And you need to understand how to break 4 up into parts in order to add, subtract, divide and multiply. So that's a destination. I want my children to understand parts of wholes, because again, if you're going to add and subtract, the whole idea is that relationship between the whole and the parts. And of course, that goes on to be multiplication and division as well. So can you see what I'm starting with here is I've got what I call my big ideas, which I'm writing a new training course on this at the moment that'll be available to you. But you mustn't start with self-registration. You mustn't start with a task. You have to start with the big ideas. Okay, so tell me again in the chat box, does that make sense? So I've identified some big ideas that are always there. And I'm thinking, why do they need these? Well, they need them in order to be good thinkers in mathematics, to be able to add, subtract, multiply and divide. I don't think in early years we're encouraged to think like that, because that sounds like hard maths. And you think it isn't hard maths. It's you're giving them the steps towards what will be more complicated maths in the future, but it won't be complicated if they've got the right tools. So the next bit of the iceberg is the how. This one here, let's do a little arrow there. So the how, this I'm going to call your maths subject knowledge. How does the maths itself work? This bit we're really quite scared of, most of us, because we had a pretty rubbish education ourselves. And this is the bit that I have learned to be really good at, and I can, I help everybody who works with me to be really good at this and feel confident. The how is, how do children of 3 and 4 and 4 and 5, which is the age group I specialise in supporting practitioners who work with that age group. Sorry, that sounded really bad English, wasn't it? I support practitioners who work with 3 to 4 and 4 to 5-year-olds. How do they best learn? How does a 3 and a 4-year-old and a 4 and 5-year-old see the world? How does their brain take in information and process information? And they haven't been alive very long, so they don't do it the same way as we do. Their brains have an enormous capacity for learning, far more than ours at whatever age we are now. But we have to understand how they learn, and that's the pedagogical bit. So children, like adults, learn when they're interested, when they see that it's going to serve them, it's going to give them something. It really is as simple as that. If I can see the point, when you're 3 and 4 and 4 and 5, you won't say that out loud like, I don't see the point, but you remember saying that all the way through secondary school. Most of us said, like, I don't know why they're teaching us this. Your brain is aware of learning that is purposeful and learning that isn't. And you will get children as young as 4 and 5 again who want to please you so much that you might think your teaching is better than it is because they're nodding and smiling at you. It's because they love you. It doesn't mean the learning's going in. And we know that because when we come to, want to use that learning, we realise we've taught it, but it isn't there. So again, tell me in the chat box, I'm going to suggest a little catch up here. Tell me, does this make sense? Again, give me some thumbs up. So what I want you to just pause at this point is don't start with the what anywhere in life. It's the why do we need this that's going to give you the motivation to do it well, and it's going to make you seek out the skills you need to do it well. And believe me, when I show you, if you haven't watched the webinar already, when I show you this pathway, it makes your life so easy, and you will realize that there's not very much maths to teach. It's how you teach it and what you understand that makes a difference. So subject knowledge, why, pedagogical knowledge, how, and then we think, so what tasks suit the way children learn and the tools I want to teach? And one of the tasks that does this brilliantly is self-registration. And it's not only in self-registration, for anybody who's completely new to this, it's the idea that obviously we need to know legally who's here in most cases, but it's more about the children coming in and saying I'm here in some way, and we'll unpick that, and there's a lot more in the training for you. But the biggest benefit for doing this alongside the maths is it builds a routine that parents and families can be a part of. And so many of you are asking for support, quite rightly. How do I get the parents to understand subitising? How do I get the parents to understand why what they're doing when they do lots and lots of counting activities at home is great, but we need to balance that with other things as well? Well, this is going to help you more than anything I could possibly recommend. It won't only help you with those things, but the way we do self-registration, particularly from 3 years old, is the parents come in and can speak their first language with their child. So parents feel comfortable and confident, and particularly if you're coming from a traumatic, transition from one country to another, particularly if you're, can't even imagine being a refugee, or you've come from a very, very different culture and you are absolutely, just as a parent, completely struggling with the changes. Being able to come into your child's setting and see how settled they are with that routine, be part of that routine, talk in your first language is, oh my goodness, it is absolutely priceless. So does all that make sense? We've looked at why, how and what, and we've said that only think about the activity when you have done that why and what. And self-registration is not only going to teach, brilliant for noticing, absolutely brilliant, brilliant for perceptual subitising, and then later conceptual subitising, brilliant for using 5 and 10 frames meaningfully. So that's what I'm going to show you a little bit more of in this session. But at this stage, and I'll just pause and drink a little bit of my coffee, just tell me what's going on in your head here. What are you thinking? Is there anything you want to ask a question about so far? Because this obviously is a Q&A session. So have you had any little wow bombs? Are you feeling excited? Give me some feedback in the chat box. So I can show you some of the comments on here, which is lovely. So we've got great. We'll be doing a talk to parents in September to help them understand EY maths. This will be perfect. I would also, if you do it however you like, but when we are telling people about things or informing people, often they get scared if things aren't what they know. So sometimes it is, well, pretty much always better. Have for example, your self-registration in place first, and that can form the basis of the talk, and they can already see the difference it's making with their children and they feel excited. You have less of that with early years parents because they're much more likely to be on board with everything you say. But if you have something in place, you won't need to explain things as much. You can use that as an example. So that would work really well if you want to go that way. There's so much to learn, says Helen. Honestly, Helen, the phrase that we use is, you don't know what you don't know. And all of my Impact members, who are the people I work most closely with, so Impact and Pathway, everyone, just go and have a look on the website if you're interested under that drop-down menu. But they are my monthly members. And the more Rosalia, who's on the call today, I know you said this recently, the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know. And you could see that as a negative or scary, but don't, because the scary thing would be not realizing you don't know this stuff. What is wonderful, and I'm in my 50s now, I love finding stuff I didn't know, because then I can learn, and everything in my life improves as a result. So, and I know all my members feel like that, but it can feel both overwhelming and you can feel so guilty, because if I say something and you think, I didn't have that tool in my toolbox, I haven't been doing it like that. Well, you couldn't have, could you? Until you got the tool in your toolbox, you couldn't have taught like that. So that guilt or that overwhelm is normal, but get past it, and honestly, it's a great place to be. Yeah, so someone's about 2-year-olds here. I wouldn't do this with 2-year-olds. It's, one of the reasons I don't specialise in 0 to 5 is because obviously children moving from 2 to 3 don't change overnight, but that 0 to 2 is very, very different. I'd say 0 to 1 and then 1 to 2 is very, very different. I'd be doing this with 3-year-olds onwards, okay? Unless you're in a childminding setting where you've got lots of mixed ages, and you'll see the 2-year-olds will just duck into whatever they're interested in. So excited by all this new learning. Oh, honestly, you've found your people. It is just wonderful. So, I might pronounce your name wrong, but Marilise, is it? I hope I've got that right. Returning to reception after 7 years, keen to learn new strategies. Yeah, and not do what we've always done, because we too often see conversations on groups that say, anybody got any ideas? That's literally just heading straight for the what. Do not do that, everybody. It doesn't matter how well intentioned the person asking or the person responding, they're not starting in the right place. So avoid those conversations. Also, the idea when people say, well, I've always done this. Again, that doesn't sit right with me. It should be, well, this has been really effective in getting my children to understand and use this skill. Can you see the destination is different? All right, so I'm going to show you. So B's here for the why, no self-registration needed at home. Well, it's interesting actually, B, I know your situation obviously, but I'll show you what, because if you're a home educator, I'll show you what one of the childminders in Impact has been doing to help. So I'm going to show you some different things, everyone. And if you, whatever pops into your head that you'd like to ask, but bear in mind, if you haven't done the training yet, when you've done the training, you'll have a different set of questions, and you can come on. Just to remind you, this is our group we're on now. There I am, Mark 2. Oh, look, I'm not even showing up. Let me just refresh that, everybody, and just check. There we are. Okay, so what you can do is you can come onto this group, the 3 to 5 group, at any point after you've done the training and ask any questions there. So we're always here for you. So I'm going to show you two different things now. Firstly, I'm going to show you some images about what self-registration can look like. So if you've got questions about 5 frames and 10 frames, it'd be good to ask those. I'm going to show you about where this learning can lead, and it can be alongside the 5 and 10 frames. Things don't have to be coverage-wise, we do this, then we do this next. Think about things happening consecutively. And then I'm also going to show you a trajectory, because what lots of you ask about is, what does the progression look like? So I'm going to show you progression from nursery, so 3 to 4-year-olds in England here, and then reception, 4 to 5-year-olds, and then into year 1, 5 to 6-year-olds. So here we have a very simple way of looking at this. The idea that you start off with a 5 frame, and lots of you asked about this, that what we are aiming for is, and as I say, the training will show you all this, but we're not aiming for children to know this is 3 when they start off. We're aiming just for them to understand that there's a rule here that we fill from one side. It could be from that side, but depending on which way your children are reading. If you're obviously in a country that reads right to left, it might make more sense to go that way. But as I'm presenting from a country that reads left to right, I'm filling it this way. So this little girl's arrived, put her picture in. Then this little boy's arrived, put his picture in. This little girl's arrived. So their photos are maybe in a basket, or they're spread out, or they might be with a little bit of Velcro on the back. You decide. It can be horizontal or it can be vertical. You decide. But the main thing is, make it somewhere where lots of parents and lots of children can easily get to it. Okay, so that's really important, because our destination is getting parents and carers and children talking in our session, in our setting, and getting people coming in. So here, what children will notice at a very young age is they're learning their one-to-one correspondence here, but you've got this space is getting less. So when the next child comes in and puts their photograph here, they start to have this awareness that there's only space for one more. They don't have to have the word one yet, but many of them will use this. But you'll see this anticipation that if 2 children arrive, there's almost an anxiety, because they're like, oh, there isn't space for the 2 to go in there. Now that shows you that they understand how 1 compares with 2. They are using their natural ability to subitize to see there's not enough space. And what we do at this point is we'd put another 5 frame below, but we wouldn't join the 2 together like this. And move this one out of the way, we'd get another one like that, and we'd leave it with a space. So I'm going to show you that in practice. So here's Claire, who joined Impact last autumn and consumed everything, as was having a really, really challenging time in her school. So it wasn't that life was easy, and she's done amazingly, and she's joined my highest level membership in Greater Impact now. But can you see here, if I make this a little bit bigger, here Claire is using the 5 frames, and you could use this with nursery or reception. It's all about introducing them to it. And can you see they're not touching? And it's not about, this is really important, so take note of this. Look what the question is. So this is something I've changed with the practitioners, as most people said, how many children are here today? Children are not interested in how many children are here today. It doesn't make sense to them that lots and lots of children are represented with one number. What makes sense to them and what they're interested in is who is here and where does my picture go? And what they start to notice is if the face is still over here, they know that means they haven't arrived yet, or they've arrived and not self-registered. And this side means all these children are here. And we just talk about full and not full yet. So avoid the adult agenda of how many. You can do that separately for your register. They are interested in full, 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 not full yet, space for one more child. So make sure your agenda fits the children. This is so, so important. Be really aware when you're lapsing into adult agenda, because we do it a lot. I said I would show you. So here's Sika, who's also an Impact member. She's a childminder, and she said, how can I do self-registration when I only have a few children? Or people like B, when you've only got your daughter at home, can I still do this? And we've got a number of childminders in Impact. And Sika came up with this idea about who did we see today? Because of course you're going to be going out, you're going to have people coming to the house. So she gathered together photographs of the people that in our daily lives we see, and then we put their pictures on the 5 frame when we see them. So you can see that there always are ways of doing things. And because Sika understands her why, what is it I'm trying to give the children experience of mathematically? How do children of this age learn best? She's then come up with what would work? If you start with the what, you will get stuck, or you might make something that doesn't work. But can you see by going through why and how, it works brilliantly? So I'm just going to come back on and see if we've got any questions, and I'll show you a little bit more. Okay, so Kay says, a great question, Kay. After putting themselves on the frame next to their friends, most of our children want to count. How do we discourage this, or should we? Okay, so Kay, just to reassure you that the conversations around counting and subitising are something we have and have had and will continue to have constantly. Okay, so these are really important questions. Counting is a human-made skill. Subitising is natural. Subitising uses the number names that humans have created, but it is a natural skill. So it depends where you are with your training with that. So counting, the reason you have to think like, well, why are they counting? They're counting because that's what they're hearing the most from the adults around them. There may still be, of course, that happening in your setting. You'll have to think about that. But they're getting this, of course, from parents, because parents don't have that subitising tool in their toolbox yet, or they haven't had that wow bomb of this makes complete sense, which we all know how that felt, because that's what we used to be like. So think about the why. Why are they doing it? Subitising is much easier and counting is much harder. So what you might be finding is they might have their one-to-one correspondence, but the idea of understanding that the last number represents the whole set, you're only ever going to really get that when you've got a subitising base. So there might be a lot of kind of counting behaviour, but the true understanding, and the understanding that in that 4, for example, there are 2 2s and 4 1s and so forth, they've kind of jumped over the top of all that. So understand all that first. It's habitual, that's why they're doing it. What I would recommend you do is think separately about all of the messages and the amount of subitising you do in your setting. Like, it should be happening every day, because it's much quicker and easier, and children will tend to want to do what's quicker and easier. At the moment, while they're counting, don't make a big deal about it at all. And I think you're instinctively saying that's what you're doing, which is great. We're not going to tell them not to count, because when we get to further on in our journey, we're going to have the counting tool in our toolbox and the subitising tool, and they're going to need to decide, in this situation which is going to be best. So I'm not talking about self-registration here, but further down the road, because they both can be used to establish how many. But at this stage, if a child counts, just accept that and then model what you notice. And you might say things like, and use your finger, like say, oh, I've noticed there's 4 and there's 1 not here yet. Or I've noticed there's 3 and I can see there's 2. So just keep modeling that behavior. They always want to get your approval. So what you model and what you give attention to, they're going to do more of as well. But I think from what you said there, your instincts are spot on. So we'll see if that, let me know if that's helpful. Okay. Let's see. So Andrew, how to teach the words before and after for a 7-year-old with specific language impairment. Okay, Andrew, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Pop a post on the group specifically about this, okay? And I will come back to you on that one. So this person here is saying, yeah, I've been learning not to do what I have always done and not to follow the same the scheme since joining Pathway. Yeah, so one of the things we say if you're new to us is if you've got a math scheme in your school or setting, you know, you maybe can't control that, and I certainly can't. So I help you become a user of a scheme instead of a follower. So that's a reference to that. Right, Joe. Hi, Joe. And Joe, I know you just bought the number bonds one, didn't you, just before it ran out the other day as well. Would you use it with year 1 and 2 as well as mixed age? Absolutely. And I'll show you the trajectory. But if you think about it, Joe, what I want you to do as a result of this webinar is I want you to think, what are the specific number skills you want year 1s and 2s to have? And you and I know that 2-digit numbers and part whole and addition and subtraction. So examples like what just jumps into my head. We'll do a kind of a not very realistic class here, but let me just show you a quick example, Joe. So for example, now I'm going to mention a number here that very few classes have this number of children. So don't think I'm not in, you got the reality check on how big our classes are. So here, because I've only got 3 10 frames, so anybody who will make sure that's not, you see, this is, because it's reversed, I'm always moving the wrong direction, so I do apologise. Right, try and get it in focus, that's what I was trying to do. Right, so we've got, for anybody who's new to us here, 1 finished 10 frame and 4 of the next 10 frame, not 1 finished 10 and 4 more, which is what a lot of people say, but 1 finished 10 and 4 of the next 10, hence 14, 1 finished 10, 4 of the next one. Now, Joe, with year 1s and year 2s, you could say, well, we know there are 24 children in our class, and this morning I took a picture when it was up to this. How many children hadn't self-registered yet? So the strategy that and we could do it together now, what does 24 look like on 10 frames? Well, the 2 means 2 full 10 frames, and the 4 means 4 of the next 10 frame. So that means those children aren't here yet and those children aren't here yet. So you can start problem solving like that. And that is part of a trajectory that started with our 3-year-olds at just noticing whether something was full or not full. So I hope that is really exciting. And that's the kind of thing I'm writing module 5 for the Teaching Essential Number Sense course. Details of that on the website as well. For the transition into year 1 and year 2, that would be a great thing for me to add in that as an example of how self-registration can do. And it's brilliant for children who developmentally are earlier still, or are, you know, got special needs. So good, non-verbal children and so forth. Lovely to see. So somebody here saying, I am so excited to share this with parents. Yeah, we get so frustrated. And of course, most people are parents and educated practitioners. It's funny, we talk about parents, don't we, as if they're a separate group. But most of you straddle both groups. And most parents want to do their best and they want to do the right thing. And we get frustrated when we say, oh, they keep teaching them to count. And you think, we've got to ask why. If they're only teaching counting and not supporting subitising, it can only be because they either haven't got that tool in their toolbox yet, or they're not completely convinced. They haven't had enough experience to go, oh my goodness, this does make sense to me. So brilliant to hear that. Any more? I'll tell you what I'm going to ask you to do. Put a Q in front of any questions, because when I'm scanning through the chat box, that's really helpful. So we've got, let's see, thank you, Joe. I'm glad that's helpful. So is this the same person here? Can we use pictures of objects or places instead of people for self-registration? For example, number of toys I played with. So that is a brilliant question and links so well. Thank you, that person. Let's have a look at the next one. So just wanted to show you when you do move on to 10 frames, what I would always recommend you do, and I'm going to come then directly to the question about toys and things, excuse me, is I would always recommend you keep your 5 frames separate and you then move 2 5 frames together to create a 10 frame. Don't have a 10 frame that is joined. And I'm going to very quickly just demonstrate to you why here. Because again, this should feel like really joined up thinking. But this is everything I show you. I've taught from early years up to year 6 full time. And everything I am showing you is the reason why our Key Stage 2 children find calculating so hard, mental and written and place value so hard. If we get this right and it goes up through our school, these are exactly the same skills as year 6s and beyond will be using because it's the base 10 system. So I'm just going to show you here. This won't be as clear as I would like it to be because my board's not big enough. But there's a 5 frame. When we filled that and our children are arriving, we put another 5 frame underneath. But in time, when we have, I'll show you a trajectory in a moment, but when we've started to go beyond 5 and we're starting to deal with number 6, you can move those 2 5 frames together to create your 10 frame. One that shows children where this comes from, and then when you do your next 10 frame, it's really important, never put it really close to the first one. You need that whole 10 to be separate. So my next 10 frame would be down here with a nice big gap. But one of the main reasons, and the reason I'm mentioning Key Stage 2, so 7 to 11-year-olds, is, can you imagine that one can slide up and go, ooh, hang on, next to that one, and that becomes a number track or a number line. Let me put this on a board so it's better. I'm not showing that very clearly. Rub my scribbles off. So if you want to know about number tracks and number lines, that's something I talk about in the Teaching Essential Number Sense training, the 10 skills. Right, let me go the right way. Right, so we've got that one, and then we've got that one. So can you see if that was 1 to 5 and that was 6 to 10? So what we've done is we've had them like this, and then we've shown them how they can, you know, go like this. And that way, when children start using number lines with the 0 and the 5 and the 10 and 15 and 20, it makes sense that the 10 frame is still the image we're using to make sense of that. So I hope that is helpful, everyone. So there's lots and lots of training on this, so you don't have to learn it in this session. But for the person who asked about toys and so forth, these are some of the many examples. In my impact group, we've got so many examples of this, where people have taken the idea, so you think, can you see that this is about the maths? So what it is, and this one here, it's okay that this is a joined 10 frame in this situation. I think it's probably more practical. But this is about water bottles. Everybody putting their water bottles down, following the pattern, making sure you fill a 10. How many water bottles have the children put on there? Maybe it's 1 full 10 and 6 of the next, so it'd be 16. If it was something like, I don't know, something in your classroom where there should be a certain amount, such as scissors, and you create like 10 frame holes. You know how, certainly when I was at school, you used to stand the scissors in a hole. And maybe you think there should be this many pairs of scissors, but we can see there's 3 holes. We've still got to go and find those scissors. Gosh, do you know what? It's bringing back memories. If you went to school in the 70s and 80s like I did, you weren't allowed to go out to play until all the scissors were found. But that's just, I'm just having a bit of a flashback there. But we've used this for countdowns on the calendar. So people have done, just imagine looking at what we've got here. This is how many swimming sessions we've got. So this was one of the practitioners in Jersey that I worked with. And she had, so it's Carolyn, she had done, say they had 10 swimming sessions, and every time they went swimming, they took one off. So doing that kind of thing. There's so many ways you can do this. So yes, you can use children's photographs. Yes, you can use images of other things. What I wouldn't do is put lots and lots of different images in those. What I would be doing is, for example, if there's a certain amount, as I say, if it's scissors, make it the real thing. And if you are going to, I'm just thinking aloud here, that's why I'm slowing down. If you are representing something, it's sometimes better, depending on the age of your children, to put, for example, counters to represent the real thing, because you're moving into a more abstract place here. But play around with it. The best idea is play around with it, but be really clear on why you're doing what you're doing and how the children are taking control over it. So when I teach the maths that I teach all of you to use, if I walked into your setting, I would not want you to walk a child up to me or sit a child down and say, look, remember we were learning about this the other day. If I say this, can you do this? Which is so common practice for people assessing. What I'd want is to be able to watch your children when they're having snack, or watch them playing a game outside, or watch them interacting in some way. And they are using the skills you've given them without your prompting. They're just using them in everyday life. That's the only proof, as far as I'm concerned, that children have got those skills. And certainly here, if I go back again, oh, hang on a second. So Zofia, who, have I got Zofia's here today? Oh, yeah, it was this one. So Zofia is one of my Greater Impact members, and it's her quote that's on the website that says, when I first showed her this, she works with 3 to 4 year olds. She said, I didn't think my children would understand it. She works in an area of high deprivation, of very significant language, issues. So that the children come in with very, very low language. And she said it was the most popular child initiated task as soon as she introduced it. They just loved interacting with it, talking about themselves, talking about other children, playing with it during the day and doing their own sort of role play with it. So masses and masses that you can do. Let me have a look at the questions before I go any further. Oh, so you couldn't see it. Hang on a second. Let me do that again. Right, is that working, everybody? Just give me some thumbs up if that's working. Okay, that's the water bottles one. Sorry, keeping an eye on the chat and showing the slides. I'm not good at doing both at the same time. Just give me some thumbs up if that. Can you see the water bottles now? Just wait, there's a little bit of a delay. See if I'm getting any affirmation of that, or have we frozen? I'm not getting any reactions there, so I don't know if that's working. Let me just look on my phone. Seems to be working. You still can't see it. Oh, Helen says yes, and the next person says no. Well, I'm on my phone and I can see it. So this is the water bottles one. There's no water bottles on it, but it just says water bottles. Yeah. So this one, you'd have to imagine the water bottles. Maybe that's what's confused people. Okay, so any other questions? Right, so, Helen says, mine is frozen on water bottles, but Karen's talking about swimming. No, I wasn't showing you a picture, Helen, of the swimming. I was just explaining how it would work using the same things on the screen. Right, let's have another question. Yeah, some of this you have to imagine because I haven't got slides for everything. So let's have a look here. Right, question. As the children register, should I not have all the empty 5 frames on display, or should an adult add the 5 frames as they fill up? Oh, I love that idea. Well, I don't think you need an adult to do it. I think once the children have been shown how to do it, they can do it for themselves. So I would, let's think, because I'm trying to think again, I'm always thinking about from the child's point of view. I would say that my more experienced members would say having the 5 frames in a basket, say with Velcro or whatever you're using. You can use magnetic tape as well if you've got a metal surface. I think the children, when they've filled one up, would want to go and get another one. Then you might just negotiate making sure that you spread them out so they don't get too close. But kids are so good like that with rules, aren't they? Once you've shown them a couple of times and explain why. So my inclination would be to do that. If it's not working, you could put them all up. But personally, I talk a lot about cognitive load. Once we have more up, there's more to distract them from the thing they're looking at. Can you imagine if there's just a 5 frame and they're filling that up, and then they have to say, oh, it's full now, we need another one. One, you're lowering that cognitive load, but also you're kind of giving that idea about, you know, that's what they're going to need to do with 10 frames if they were trying to find out how many in the future. So that is such a good question. Thank you. So I would try, have them in a basket, get the children to put another one up, but never get an adult to do anything that at least one child knows how to do. Always get the children doing it. Okay, so Sue. So I think we've established it wasn't frozen earlier, everybody. It was just that I was explaining an example that you could use the same sort of slide. Okay. Sue, would it be worth pulling apart my 2x5 frames to make separate 5 frames every now and again to support the learning in my year 2s? I think it's even more important, Sue, to do that. I personally, unless there is a really good reason to have what I might call a fused 10 frame, I'd never use a fused 10 frame now, because when you've got those 2 5 frames and you move that lower 5 next to the upper 5 to make a number track, the link then with a number track is when you put a number in the spaces, whereas a number line is when you put the number at the end of the spaces because it's a line. When they look at a number line is going to be phenomenally useful, but not if you haven't got the understanding that, say, if I say, we'll do it this side, which side? So if you say like 0 here, and 5 there and 10 there, and you've got longer lines with the 10s and a shorter line for the 5, just like on a ruler. You want them to see in their mind that those 5 counters on the 10 frame, and if we've got 7, it's a 5 and a 2, because then if they're going to add 5 more to the 7, they think, oh, I've got a space of 3 and 2 more. And you can, of course, then go into things like blank number lines, which blank number lines are actually easier to use than demarcated number lines, but not if you don't know the concept images they relate to. So I think, so yeah, again, for the module 5, which I'm writing next for the 10s course, these are exactly the sorts of things that would be clearly really useful to include. Okay, should you start self-registration with 5 frames and move on to 10 frames? Absolutely, yeah. So maybe you joined the session a little bit later. I'm going to show you trajectory next, but you've got to get your why in order to answer this question. If I just answer that, I'm answering the what, whereas what we've looked at to begin with is, why would you use 5 frames? And then how is that going to help children learn? So if I go back to that and explain that a little bit more, thank you for that question. When we teach self-registration, the why is nothing to do with self-registration. The why is that the children ultimately need to understand the base 10 system. And when you are 3 and 4 and 4 and 5, you are just taking some steps towards that. When we've got children in reception now, with practitioners that work with me who can easily work with teen numbers and so forth well into the base 10 system. But for you, you have to thoroughly understand, which is why I've got the Teaching Essential Number Sense course, what the base 10 system is about. And that is about a finished group of 10. And when we get to 10 in the base 10 system, we don't go on to another number. We just have another 10 below. It's just counting to 10 again. So we've got a finished 10 and 1 of the next 10. That's why 11's written like that. We take steps back from this. Understanding that 10's made of 2 5s is absolutely essential. And understanding, and I'm going to show you trajectory in a moment, understanding how numbers relate to a 5, because the next one is just another 5. So there's almost like a mini unit within that unit of 10. There's 2 mini units of 5. When children later encounter calculating with decimals, for example, in Key Stage 2, 7 to 11-year-olds, particularly 9, 10, 11-year-olds, this knowledge that 10 is made up of 2 5s is absolutely essential when you're calculating with larger numbers as well. So can you see how important it is that you know where the maths goes? And most of us, we just haven't been given this. You're perfectly capable of learning it, but not if someone doesn't take the time to teach you and you don't take the time to, find the opportunity to learn. So I'm going to show you on the back of that. Oh, Joe, I'll come back to that. So if I forget, just prompt me. Okay, so I'm going to show you a resource that I'm going to add this resource to the webinar that is available for you to buy on the website. Remember, £15 until 6 o'clock today. Or if you are Pathway or Impact, you will get this for free as part of your membership. But what I'm going to give you, let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so this here, we start at the bottom and we go up like this. So this is leading towards children understanding, as you can see, base 10. I've actually got ones that go even higher than this, but here, can you see that this is 15? Because it's a whole 10 and 5 of the next 10. So that's why 15 is written the way it is. But if we start down here, where most of us will be starting, unless you've done a lot of training with me, we've got here the idea about the focus is full and not full. And this is why the self-registration webinar is really helpful here. And at the same time, simultaneously, we are looking at subitising 1s, 2s and 3s. So in natural things, with low cognitive load and with counters. Because what will happen then is those same children who are first noticing full and not full will begin to say, oh, there's only 2 more spaces. Or when Ben puts his picture on, it'll just be 1 more space. And they are linking these skills here with these skills here. And the trouble is, if you do subitising in isolation, and particularly if you think that subitising is to do with dice patterns, which lots and lots of training online says that, and it's so much more than that. But if you don't understand why you're teaching subitising, because it's to enable children to calculate in the future, that's what it's for. When you start doing this and this together, you start to see these connections. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And then in time, they start recognising, what does 1 look like on a 5 frame, 2, 3, 4. And then when we go beyond 5, the fact is that the 6 can look like this, or it can look like this. Once we introduce that second 5 frame to make a 10 frame, we explore patterns in what we call the 5s pattern and the 2s pattern. So all of this will be included in the training, but all of this is what I explain in minute steps in the Teaching Essential Number Sense training, which is we call the TENS training, because that's Teaching Essential Number Sense. And again, you can find out about that on the website. If you ever want to do that as a team, as a group, either a group of schools or a group of practitioners in your setting, we have what's called Team Impact, and that is an incredibly cost-effective way of studying that course, plus other things. So Joe asked, let's get rid of that one. Thank you for that question, that person. Will the next teaching on TENS course be added on or a new purchase? Okay, Joe, what I have decided so far is that anybody in Impact that has ever bought the TENS course, because my Impact members get loads and loads of bonuses and privileges, obviously, they are going to be given that module for free, because that's part, as I say, part of being an Impact member. I'm thinking of how to, for those of you who've studied the TENS and your access has now run out, you get 4 months access or 6 months access, depending on what offer you go for, and you didn't get to do it, I'm got to come up with a plan where you will get in contact with us and show evidence that you have completed the TENS, and then you will be able to buy that module separately, because I know that buying the whole thing again, you know, the easiest thing to do is be an Impact member, and then our greater Impact members, once you've done the TENS course, they get unlimited access to the TENS course. That's the cheapest way to do it. So that's one other way you can do it. But if you're in Pathway, or if you're a non-member and you're not going to join Impact and you've done the TENS course in the past, as I say, I will look at asking you to get in touch with us with the evidence you've done it, and then we'll add it on, because of course I can't give you the module 5 if you haven't done module 1 to 4, because it won't make sense. So I'm still working on the finer details of that, Joe, but I hope that is helpful. Oh, so Joe, you bought it and not started. So don't leave it too long, because, you know, make sure just keep it ticking over. Also, again, Impact members get 4 live sessions with me to support them. So that's another, again, good reason to try Impact out, because when you're studying the TENS, keeping that momentum and me modelling things is really helpful. By the way, Impact, everybody, you can cancel any time. So if you want to dive in there and see what it's like, you can come in for a month and then leave. I'm not after anybody's money. I'm after helping you. And obviously, just making a living alongside that is a good thing. All right, so Joe, I will add that into anybody who's got it at the moment. So you'll get that automatically when I've written it. So that here, Should 3 to 4 year olds nursery in England be moving on to using the 10 frame, or is that better saved for reception? If so, at what point in the school year might they move on? I've mostly stuck to single 5 frames as you showed in examples. Okay, so I don't know who's asked this, but I would say that you're still at a place of coverage. You can never ever, unlike most schemes, you can never ever say, oh, in term 4, you know, like half term 4, we're going to move on to numbers 6 to 10, which is what pretty much all schemes do, because that's not how children learn. We know that the problems with that are when children aren't ready, they're still being given the content whether they're ready or not. So their foundations are just crumbling all over the place. So it's teaching over learning. And if the children are ready to move on, they're being held back by the fact that we're not doing that this term. So that's the difference between being a follower and a user. And that's not a judgment call on my part. Everyone starts off being a follower and then you move to being a user. So what I would say to you is developmentally, you need to spend a lot of time on numbers 1 to 3 with nursery. And if you haven't done any training with me yet, that's what we start with. And I'll mention to you about the challenge that's coming up next month to help you do that. Then you need to move on to the 1 to 5. And believe me, if you do all the things that I suggest, 1 to 3, then 0 to 5 or 1 to 5, with perceptual and conceptual subitising and 5 frames and how many ways you can use that, you'll find that there's so much depth to go into that you might never get to the point where it's relevant to go to number 6. However, if your children have absolutely got all of that and are using it brilliantly, it doesn't matter if they're 4, you would move them on to numbers 6 to 10 in the way that I show you, which is just another 5. And if they're ready to do it, and we've got lots and lots of impact members in this group, because they're all in this group as well, who could, like Zofia and Kelly and Katie and lots of people who could come on and tell you what they've done with their nursery. But the main thing to say, as I say, and I say this, 100% supportive to you, is do not believe for a second that the best way to teach maths is the way that most schemes show, which is we do these numbers in this part of the term and then we do these numbers. You know that doesn't work, but often we're using it because we haven't seen an alternative. Okay, so I hope that's helpful, and you're in this group, so you've got us. Yeah, we've got us to help you. You're not on your own with this. Okay, right. What was like? Oh, I know. Right, what I'm going to make sure I tell you before we finish is, most of you will know this, 3 challenges a year that I run, and again at very, very low cost, and there's always an early bird. But next month in September, I run what's called the 1 to 3, and it's often 1 to 5, actually, super subitising challenge. And I will show you exactly what our member was asking there. I will show you how to use subitising, perceptual and conceptual, to teach all children to deeply understand how 5 frames work, how subitising works, to use things off a 5 frame, on a 5 frame, natural things, and how to make sure that's embedded in all of their play and all of their everyday habits. Okay, so that will be, I can tell you the exact date actually if I just have a peep over here. That is going to be starting on let's have a look, Friday the 19th of September will be the launch day. And then it will be, hang on a minute, no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing, hang on, take that back. Let's see, Friday, there we go, just looking at the big calendar, Friday the 15th of September, I was looking at January. So it's to give you a couple of weeks with your children, mainly getting your head around what's happening, and then we'll launch into that straight away, because I will be putting up lots of information, so don't worry if you haven't done it before. It's super easy and wonderful. It's short, sharp, loads of support from me, live support, loads of resources and videos, and you will then start the year the way that you want to continue, and it'll cast a lot of questions over the way you're doing things if you haven't done any training with me yet, but it will also give you all the answers that you need. So exciting stuff. Okay, let's have a look. Any more cues? Because we're on our hour now. I hope that has been really helpful and lots of food for thought. This will be this is recorded, so it'll stay on the group and you can go back and watch things and fast forward. So question, I have a 7-year-old son who can count, add, subtract. Can I still start with the tens course and start with the basics? Yes, if you've not done any training with me at all, the way that your son will be adding and subtracting is likely to be by counting in ones, forwards and backwards. And we never want a child that then becomes an adult to calculate using counting, but it's what we've all been taught to do. Because what happens then, imagine everybody in a column method. Just do this quickly, I'll do it visually so you can see. Say we've got something like this. We all sort of seen this and we've done it ourselves. When children are adding this column here, you'll get this. You'll either get 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or you'll see them doing this little head nod because they go in 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Whereas here, the idea, if you picture 7 on a 5 frame, on a 10 frame, let me just make this for you so I can, right. So instead, we want them to visualise, because this is what we always say, and this is what the national curriculum wants, and curriculum around the world. Here's 7 plus 5. Well, what you could do is either use 3 of this 5 to make a 10, and then 2 of the next 10, or you could add the 2 5s together to make a 10 and 2 of the next 10. Either way, it's going to be 12. But you're using your number bonds. That's why we teach number bonds. Again, most of us think, I teach number bonds because it's in the curriculum. No, you teach it so they're going to be fluent calculators. Also, why we do that is because that makes a whole 10, which is why it gets carried into this column, and the 2 stays here because it's just 2 of an unfinished 10. And most of us haven't been taught the why behind that. So in answer to your question, 100%. So you've got 2 choices. Either come and join Impact, and Impact is £25 a month, but you will save, I'm trying to think what it is now, £70 on the price of the TENS course. So you can do the maths. You could be an Impact for 3 months and pretty much pay the same as you would if you just bought the course on its own, but you'll get all the benefits of Impact as well. And you'll get my direct support by being an Impact member. So you get a reduction on the TENS course plus Impact for the same price, or you can just go and buy it off the website for £199 and do it on your own, but you've got the choice. And if you want to ask any questions about that and clarify that, just pop them on the group and I will jump on and answer them. Great. So whoever this is here, sorry I can't see everybody's name. Any questions you've got from today's session and you think, oh, she said that too quickly, or I need more information about that, either put a post on the group. That is the best thing to do, because then when I answer, I help lots and lots of people on the group. Or beyond that, when you've already got your general answer, come and email us. Use the contact button on the website. Email us and ask us anything you want, and we will make sure that you get exactly what you need. Right, let's have a look here. So don't forget, everybody, if you're popping off now, and we'll start winding things up, you only have till 6 o'clock tonight for it to be £15, the self-registration webinar. It's on the website at the top. You can still buy it for the rest of August, but it will be £35. So still an absolute bargain, honestly, for the changes it will make, but it will only be available for August. You get 7 days unlimited access, but that starts as soon as you buy it. It does say that at the checkout, so be careful. All right. As an ECT in nursery, is it best to wait for the challenge in September, or is there somewhere else I should start to help me in my role? Honestly, everybody in Impact would say this. The best thing you could possibly do would be to come and join Impact and come into my membership. The group is so incredible. I wish I had had people around me like this when I was an ECT or an NQT in my time. We've got a very, very clear step-by-step when you come in, which includes the self-registration training, and you won't lose it. You keep it forever, but you've got some time training, you've got some shape training. That will really help you get on the right track, which I wish I'd had. But the main thing I think you'll benefit from is you can come onto that group and say, oh my goodness, I'm an ECT and I don't know about this and I don't know about that. And you will get so much reassurance from very experienced practitioners as well as ECTs like yourself that how you're feeling is normal. And you'll get proper, respectful, professional, loving advice from them. So really, as I say, and you don't need to stay in. If you come in for a couple of months and doesn't suit you, you've literally, it ends up costing, 70p a day to be an Impact, and you can cancel any time. That's what I would do, because you need you need a structure and you need a massive hug around you, because you know you're going to catch every bug going. You're going to go from being as high as a kite, loving it, to being like, oh my goodness, what have I done? Don't do that alone. So, you know, I reckon you've got nothing to lose. Come and join us. Any more questions about that, by the way, as well, just literally post, and we'll link you up with other Impact members who can tell you what it's like rather than me saying it. If I buy the TENS course now, will I get the 5th module as well? Okay, great question. Currently, I am writing what I'm calling a 360-degree course, which is going to basically be called, along the lines of 5 steps to teaching early years maths brilliantly. And it's going to be every part of your provision, which is like assessment, planning, and all the things I've talked about today, provision. I'm doing that at the moment. I'm well into that. And then I'm going to write the module 5 and get that written before the end of the summer holiday, before the end, or in time for the end of August. As soon as it's ready, it will be added into the existing TENS course. So what you can do is be studying modules 1 to 4, and certainly by the beginning of September, that module 5 will be there waiting for you. So hope that makes sense and is very exciting. And it's no more money, by the way. I'm adding that whole extra module and the price isn't going up. Is the group a Facebook group? Will we be given a link once if we join Impact? Right. What group, Helen? So just tell me a little bit more. So Impact, my members, they have their own Facebook group called the Impact Lounge, where it's, in fact, I can show you. Let me show you what it looks like. And then if I haven't understood your question, just ask another question. So here's my Impact Lounge, where we share stuff constantly. If I go just to the media here, you'll get an idea. You see, we're all a bit sunflower mad at the moment. Have I gone to the right one? Yeah. So those sunflowers are coming out because we did the sunflower project. But here we've got books that they're reading. We've got classroom setups. We've got documentation. Some amazing stuff. And we have a lot of fun together as well. So you get a lot of sharing and wonderful pictures from people's practice. I run training every month for Impact members, but you can see about that on the website. So there's loads there, but it is just the most gorgeous environment to be in, because nobody bites your head off and no one makes you feel stupid, and everyone is deeply reflective, which encourages everybody else to be like that as well. The Impact one. So does that help, Helen, seeing that? I keep thinking about the actress Helen Hunt every time I see your name. You're very welcome, Joe. Joe, if you're still there, Joe, are you an Impact? Because you've got Impact written all over you if you're not yet. Okay, I think that's everything. Any other questions, everybody? That's gone quick, hasn't it? Gosh, an hour and 10 minutes almost. Any other questions? Either pop them below and tag me in them. But honestly, if they're a biggie, which I think all your questions are biggies, put them as a separate post, because the trouble with putting a really good question in a feed like this is it gets lost. So put them in a separate post. I approve all the posts on the group, so I'll see it. And then everybody will benefit from the replies that we get. Because so you ask such good questions, you don't want to have to read 70 comments to find it, do you? So do that. And we are always, always here for you. Don't not know. Don't think, oh, I can't ask that. We'll make sure that you are in the right place for you at this point. So whatever that is, we'll make sure you get what you need. All right, I am... Right, so your pathway still, Joe. Well, at least you're in the inner circle, aren't you? But I say you've got Impact written all over you, and Pathway members get Impact cheaper. You can move from Pathway to Impact for less money. So go and have a look, or come and chat to us about that. All right, take care, everyone. And I hope, honestly, just do this one thing. Just promise yourself you're going to have self-registration in your setting. Go and watch that webinar. Come and ask us as many questions you like. It is life-changing and you will love it. Okay. All right. Take care, and I will see you all again soon.